All right, it looks like we're all present and correct. And if everyone will please stand and join me, I understand we have some students from SACO to lead us in the pledge. Very much. Why don't you come around and shake hands? Oh. It's fine. Come take pictures back here. Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you for coming. Well done. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Thanks for opening our meeting. Thank you for Thanks, sweetheart. You look beautiful. Thanks for helping out tonight. We appreciate it. What kind of relief is that? Thank you, sweetheart.
Good job. Good job.
Did I? Well done.
Thank you. Oh, yes. But you're not from SACO then.
Thank you. Good job.
Good work.
Thanks for coming.
Good job.
Whenever possible, we like to start with students so we remember what we're all about. We took some action in closed session, so I have some reporting out to do. On November 4th, 2014, the board met in closed session to address item number D. The board voted 4-0 to approve an agreement between the family of a special education student and the district. The substance of the agreement is as follows. The district agrees to fund the cost of a student's educational expenses during 2014-15, 2015-16, and 2016-17 school years at a total cost of up to and not to exceed $48,000 a year. All right, and we didn't have any expulsion actions, I'm happy to report, and that brings us to the meeting procedures. And you're all looking very bright and eager. That's good because you're going to be on TV. So, this meeting is a regular meeting of the Board of Education for Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, where our primary focus is the education of students in the school district. During this meeting, members of the public will have the opportunity to share information, voice their ideas and concerns regarding matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During the board's discussion of each agenda item, there will be a time for you to have the opportunity to speak on that item. If the topic you want to address is not on the agenda, although not mandatory, we would encourage you to please fill out a tan speaker card. And I don't have an example, but you can find them out in the hallway and turn them in over here. And you will be called to speak on that topic during communications from the public. If you wish to address a topic that is on the agenda, we encourage you to fill out one of the blue forms, and again, it's not mandatory to do so. I will call your names in no particular order to speak to the board for no more than 3 minutes. We have a little clock right here. And our meetings are televised, cable channel 28 on Wednesdays at 7 p.m., Saturdays at 9 a.m. Thank you very much. Madam Superintendent, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Thank you, Madam President. We actually have one change to the agenda this evening. Under consent item 12K, the revised salary schedules, we have a substitution revised page. The schedule that was in the published board agenda included the SEIU recommended changes for this evening that are before the board, but they did not include the previously board approved and ratified CSEA unit changes. So this revised version has both of the changes included as a proposal.
Thank you very much. So we'll address that when we get to consent items. And we have a recognition this evening. Would you like to introduce that?
Certainly, it's my pleasure to bring up Mrs. Nathanson, Denise Nathanson. She is the principal of Arroyo Seco, and she is going to do the honors of a very special recognition of an incredibly talented teacher who is an amazing model for integrating and enhancing education with technology.
As you can see, she has many fans. These are her students who are very excited to be here tonight. So I would like to introduce to you Mrs. Lisa Wilson, our 4th and 5th grade combination teacher. Not an easy job to take on. Mrs. Wilson is probably one of the most organized people you will ever meet. We could all take lessons. Every year she plans out her year adding new things that she has learned from many of the various trainings that she has participated in, and then she shares that with her fellow peers at Arroyo Seco. Her classroom is conducive to student collaborating and learning. You will find students working on various projects using technology, paper and pencil, or conferring at the collaboration station. A very cool experience. Every student is given the opportunity to learn beyond what is provided in a textbook. Mrs. Wilson's specialty is technology, not just as it applies to her teaching, but also to the learning of students. Over the last few years, she has become our technology expert and keeper of Chromebooks. She holds weekly classes, Tech Tuesdays, after school for staff covering such areas in technology as email, school loop, grade books, SBAC testing, Spelling City, and the ever-famous Google Docs. That's just to name a few. There's always something new she's finding. During the day, she trains her students to assist our teachers when they have technological issues throughout the day. Before school, Mrs. Wilson opens her classroom at 7:30 a.m. to students who do not have computers to use at home. And this goes all the way down to first graders, which is amazing to see. Today, after much planning, her class held a mock election for the entire school to vote for class California governor as part of their social studies curriculum. Let's see, Lauren and Savannah, Lauren, what were our results? Remember? Anybody? Sam? And Santa Claus as a write-in with one. It was really cute. Mrs. Wilson is not just a teacher to the students in room 28, but to every teacher and student at Arroyo Seco. We cannot thank her enough for her continued support. So please help me in recognizing Mrs. Lisa Wilson for her contributions to Arroyo Seco School.
I was going to say, that's quite a fan club.
Thank you. That's after running the election.
House calls. Oh, come back for a photo, yep. And since you brought your fan club, I think they should be in the photo. Pick someone short and stand behind them.
I'll peek behind. I'll peek behind somebody else.
Get close like you like to.
Wonderful, thank you. That brings us to student board member reports. Do we have a volunteer to go first? All right, Marina.
Good evening, President Running and Board of Trustees. Today I have some things to present. So we presented checks to the charities that we chose to donate to during our homecoming float presentations at our last home football game. They were very thankful, and we can't wait to see how the changes in our event will benefit the community. One of our teachers, Ms. Susan Johnston, has been selected by the C-STEM Awards Committee for the C-STEM Teacher of the Year. This award recognizes C-STEM teachers for their exceptional contributions in teaching computing, integrating computing into STEM subjects, and inspiring students to pursue careers in post-secondary studies C-STEM fields. We are very proud of her. Our Almond de Bronze Club held an event at lunch yesterday for Dia de los Muertos. Many students participated in that. Our seniors are very busy completing college applications, asking for recommendation letters, and revising their personal statements. Our counselors are helping out a lot with these things. We have a Spirit Week this week to spread school spirit before the Granada versus Livermore football game on Friday. We are receiving a lot of support and are very excited for the game. We are currently selling Spirit Wear shirts for the game, too. The annual Cops versus Cowboys game will be held tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in the large gym. Even the Chief of Police will be participating. We are very excited and grateful for the support. Our women's water polo team has qualified for NCS, and we wish them luck. Winter sports also start next week. A lot of tryouts are beginning on Monday. And our leadership class is busy planning many holiday events that will be held before winter break. These include a canned food drive, a dark rally, snow day, deck the halls, and staff holiday gifts. Thank you.
Colin.
Good evening, Madam President and Board of Trustees. Granada is currently in the midst of our second Spirit Week. Today was Battle of the Bay Day, tomorrow was Middle School Day, Thursday is Camo Day, and as always, Friday is Black and Gold Day. Students have the opportunity to have their outfits posted on the Granada Pride Twitter page. Students must tweet a picture of themselves or another Spirit outfit they find spectacular and hashtag GHS Show Your Spirit. Cassie, the California State Exit Exam retest took place today. And in athletics, girls water polo enters the first round of NCS this Thursday versus Liberty High School. Winter sports start next Monday. Girls volleyball plays Livermore High School at Livermore High School this Thursday, and tonight is actually their senior night. Cross-country races in the E-Ball Championship race this Friday at Shadow Cliffs, and Granada faces Livermore in football this week on Friday. We currently hold the town trophy and hope to keep it that way this week. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have someone to speak from employee? No. No one from employee associations. So that brings us to communications from the public. And communications from the public is a time for the public to comment, either in writing or verbally, on any item that is not on the agenda. The board may listen to the comment and ask staff clarifying questions, but they will neither discuss nor take action at this meeting on topics that are not on the agenda in accordance with the Brown Act. And I see no cards, and I don't see anyone waving their hand wanting to speak. So we'll go on to correspondence. Mr. Rogie.
Yes, we have correspondence. We have received a letter from the Alameda County Office of Education addressed to Superintendent Bowers, President Runyon, and Principal Elliott from Junction. And this is in regard to the compliance of the California Education Code, Sections 1240, as noted in the 2014 Williams Instructional Materials Site visit at Junction Avenue K8. And this notified us the district that status of Junction Avenue K8 instructional materials was found to be compliant with California Education Code, and specifically those sections that incorporate the Williams settlement legislation. And it was signed by Sheila Jordan, Superintendent, Alameda County Office of Education. And that's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. And that brings us to our information discussion item. Would you like to introduce that item?
Certainly, Madam President. I would like to ask Chief Business Official Susan Kinder to provide you with an overview and update on the outcome of the district's 2014 general obligation refunding bond sale. And I believe we have financial representatives here as well.
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, we're very happy tonight to bring you the results of our bond refunding. And we have our financial advisor, Makiko Sato, here from Public Finance Management. And she has a couple members of the underwriter of the bonds from Stiefel here, and they are going to present the results of this past Thursday's sale.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, other district staff members. I am very happy to be here tonight to present you a very good results about the refunding sale. So at the last board meeting on October 7th, the board received a presentation on the district refunding opportunity and passed a resolution to move forward with the refunding bond issuance. The purpose of this presentation is to provide you an update of the financing activities that have occurred since then and talk about the results of the sale, and finally to look forward a little bit to responsibilities moving forward. One of the first steps that occurred after the passage of the resolution was an interview process to select the underwriting team. I actually really thought the process was went very well. District wanted to have a negotiated sale, but indicated that they wanted to have a formal selection process. The district requested proposals from 4 qualified underwriters. Based on the review of the written proposals, 2 firms were selected to come in and meet in person with district staff. And though all the proposals were very strong, Stiefel was selected based on their strong understanding and familiarity with Livermore, their experience with some local school districts, and their underwriting capabilities. So this is Erica Gonzalez and Catherine Perkins from Stiefel representing their firm tonight. District ratings, we also met, I think, on the same day with the in-person with Moody's and Standard & Poor's. The district received ratings of a AA3 from Moody's and A+ from Standard & Poor's. Their report focused on the strength of the local economy and the tax base. These districts are fairly typical for a California school district. In addition, as we got closer to the sale, we wanted to heighten the due diligence review of the preliminary official statement that gets sent out to investors in preparation for the sale, as they do their credit review of whether or not they want to purchase the bonds. So before the posting of the document, the financing team, the district, the financial advisor, Bond and Disclosure Council, ORIC, underwriter, and Underwriters Council, a big group of us got together to conduct a due diligence call to review the document to make sure that there were no material misstatements or omissions. So market rates remain low from a historical perspective, and I'll turn it over to the Stiefel team to talk about the market environment.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees. Thank you very much. I'm Catherine Perkins with Stiefel Nicholas. I'm joined by my colleague Erica Gonzalez. As underwriter, our primary responsibility was to find the investors for your bonds and set the interest rates. And just looking at the chart before you, it takes a snapshot of what an average municipal bond interest rate is since 1990. And you could see that the line slopes very sharply downwards towards 2014, where the district didn't quite lock in all-time lows, but was with just a hair of all-time lows in the municipal market. So it was a fantastic time to refinance your outstanding bonds to lock in new interest rates. On the following slide, leading up to the sale, in the many months leading up to the sale, the market was very strong and rates continued to drop year long. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of market volatility right before the sale. And, you can't perfectly time anything. But I think the good news is that if you look at that red line, the V in that chart, the rates basically hit rock bottom for the year around October 15th. We priced the bonds 2 weeks later on the 30th. And while rates did drop and then increase by the time we came to market, they were within a very small margin of the all-time lows. So if we went back to the previous slide, you're almost at rock bottom, not quite perfect. The one thing I wanted to note was the sale, the sale type allowed for you to time the market a little bit, where we had flexibility as to when we actually brought the bonds to market. The original schedule had the bonds pricing this week. Actually today, yeah. But we knew that there was some volatility going on, and this week has the biggest supply coming into the municipal market, which would be competing bonds with Livermore's bonds since early June. And the team made a concerted effort to get the financing ready to go early. We actually were able to enter the market last Thursday to try to minimize the market risk leading into the heavy supply this week. And, while we'd like to take credit, Makiko said, for things that go right and not take credit for things that go wrong, interest rates have gone up since last Thursday by anywhere from 0.02 to 0.1%. So we did end up making the right decision and locking in better interest rates.
All right, thank you. I did want to, ultimately, what is the bottom line? The refunding will lower debt service obligations over time for taxpayers by approximately $11.6 million, and on a present value basis, $8.9 million. The PV
Hallelujah.
savings. The PV savings represent a savings of over 15% as a percentage of the refunded bond par amount. I also wanted to put in a comparison of the, what was estimated a month ago versus now. Our results were a little stronger than what we had projected by about $1.5 million on both a future value and a present value basis, if I'm doing my math right. The savings were also significantly higher than the conservative threshold that was established in the resolution of 6%. Structure of the refunding bonds, this kind of goes back to, the four options that were presented to you, and the structure mirrored the option 2 that we had discussed in length. This is kind of a graphical representation. The two things that I wanted to point out is that in the earlier years, there was a reduction in debt service of over $400,000 per year in aggregate. And not only that, the district will be able to repay bonds a full 2 years earlier than the prior debt service structure. So all the objectives of the
we've lowered our mortgage payment and we've shortened the term. Mm-hmm. That's the equivalent for people at home.
Mm-hmm. So we established a couple of objectives at the time of back in October, and we've met all of those objectives, exceeded them quite a bit. We were able to generate significant savings for taxpayers, repay bonds earlier, realizing some savings in every year. Tax rates, I wanted to introduce this slide again. I know this was a slide that was in the prior presentation, but Livermore's tax rates for the general obligation bond program are among the lowest in Alameda County, and this refunding will further lower tax rates moving forward. I also wanted to switch over to ongoing commitments of the district as an issuer of public and tax exempt, that there are ongoing responsibilities. The district already has a very good track record of complying with these ongoing requirements, but one thing that we wanted to explore moving forward was to codify them into a policy. So we're working with Susan and others to put something together over the next couple of weeks to a couple of months. So I think that's it for our presentation. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take any.
Any board member have any questions? Mr. Rogie.
Do you have any estimate of what the savings is going to be per property tax payer?
Sure. It ranges depending on the year because of the savings, because of the growth in your tax base, but it's between, it's about $2.50 in the initial years.
Per 100,000?
And it gets a little smaller over time. Mm-hmm.
Per 100,000?
Per 100,000, yeah.
Sounds great. Best news. Good day. I hope newspapers pick this up, because there's always been so many other districts that haven't done so well with their bonds and stuff, and it's good to have this out there. So thank you very much for your hard work.
Thank you very much.
And your timing.
And it was a pleasure to work with everybody at the district. So.
Well, I think we need you to come up here, because when you save $9 million for the community, we want to shake your hands. So.
All right, great, thank you.
Thanks for getting it done. I understand it was a very difficult month.
It was, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
You got it done. Thank you.
It's always nice to have that kind of news. Thank you. Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to our discussion items, and the first item is the charter petition. And would you like to introduce that?
Certainly, Madam President. I will ask Mr. Chris Van Schack, our Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, who is also our liaison for oversight with the Livermore Valley Charter School, to present you with a staff summary of our intense review of the renewal petition for the high school, along with my recommendation and any next steps. We also have our attorney, John Ye, present for questions from the board.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowers. It is difficult to follow up a $9 million savings with any sort of report, but I'll do the best I can to provide a brief and general overview of the, as Mrs. Bowers pointed out, a very exhaustive process of reviewing the charter petition. Just a brief history of the Livermore Valley Charter Preparatory High School. They did obtain a charter from the State Board of Education in 2010, began in the 2010-11 school year under their authorization. Their 5-year term expires at the end of this year, June 30th actually, that term expires. Education Code 47605 requires charter schools to seek renewal from the district first, and the one change would be they would not go to, if the district denied, they would not go to the county, they'd go straight to the State Board of Education. And again, that would be an appeal process if they were denied by our district. On September the 12th, the charter school delivered a renewal petition to the district office. We held a public hearing just a little less than a month later for community input, and here it is November 4th, within the 60-day limit, and the board will be taking action this evening. Our review team consisted of 11 people. You can see that the 5 major areas actually are there. Educational program, employee issues, student issues, budget, physical facilities, and then legal criteria. And you can see the folks who were involved in reading through and analyzing each of those sections and finding areas for potential improvement. In addition to the sort of introduction, which is affirmations and assurances, there are 16 criteria that need to be met, and so we reviewed each one. What we did is we highlighted what we considered to be potential areas for improvement, and so in each of those areas, and I won't review those exhaustively, but I will show you that in the left column there, it's did they meet the legal requirements, and in the right column were the number of changes that we requested. In some cases it was semantic changes, in some cases it was clarification of language, in some cases we were asking them to be more specific in terms of percentage increases for student achievement. And so a number of what we considered to be reconcilable changes, we made recommendations to the charter school principal. And so as you can see through the assurances and then through the first 4, they did meet legal requirements, and we did have a number of requested changes. In the areas 5 through 8, which included employee qualifications and procedures for health and safety and racial and ethnic balance, again, in all 4 areas, they did meet legal requirements. In all 4 of those areas, we did find some subtle or not so subtle changes that we asked them to make. 9 through 12 include auditing, student discipline, how they handle retirement, student attendance alternatives. Again, in all 4 of these areas, we deemed that they had met the legal requirements, and we had identified some areas for possible improvement. The final 4, again, employee rights, dispute. They had to make an assurance that they would be the exclusive public school employer, and then the protocols for closing if that were ever to happen. Again, we deemed that they had met all legal requirements, and actually in these 4 areas there are very few changes requested. So overall, we found 46 areas that we deemed important to change in the charter petition. I met with Principal Dilley, and we reviewed each and every one of those, and he reviewed those with me and assured us that they would make the changes. He delivered those documents to me last Friday, and I've been looking through them since then, and they have met each of the 46 areas. There was 1 or 2 small language changes that I'll be requesting that he make in order to fully satisfy our requirements. We discussed a memorandum of understanding, which would be similar in type to the one that the board signed with LVCS. That would address additional areas of oversight that are not legally required by the charter petition, but are also important for us to have if we are the oversight agency. This MOU is, of course, based upon a template that is used by the State Board of Education when they authorize charters. LVCP has reviewed a draft of this. They have seen the things that we're asking for, and in principle, they have agreed to each and every one of those. There are still some things we have to hammer out in terms of language and some clarifying concepts. If the board were to consider denial, there are 4 conditions. One of these would have to be met. Either, number one, the charter school would have to show us an unsound educational program. Number 2, the petitioners, we would have to deem them to be demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program. Number 3, the petition we would have to deem did not contain an affirmation for each of the conditions that are required, or we did not think it would contain a reasonably comprehensive description. So in each of these 4 areas, we determined as a staff that they were compliant. So based upon the analysis that staff has made, a superintendent's recommendation would be for the board to vote this evening on the authorization of a renewal petition contingent upon the completion of an MOU in the next 30 days and the finalization of the language changes that we had requested previously. Principal Eric Dilley is here if you have questions of the charter school. District Legal Counsel John Ye is here if you have questions from the legal perspective, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the analysis that was done by site.
Okay, so Dr. Dunlop, would you start?
First of all, I appreciate all the work that you and your staff did of reviewing that charter in very great detail. So thank you for that. And also the fact that I thought the charter was a really nice document, and with the changes, it should meet our needs, I think. So I really appreciate how this has gone very smoothly, and everyone's doing a good job, and it seems to be working with good cooperation with the charter school.
Mr. Rovicki? No. Mrs. White?
As I looked at the proposed memorandum of understanding, it was impressive to me, the detail it went to, but on the other hand, the detail was old in some respects. There didn't seem to be an approach to the new way of looking at discipline for students. There wasn't, it talked about expulsions and such. It didn't talk about restorative behaviors and activities that are required now by is it state law or the state board's promulgations? I can't remember. And it also talked about old-fashioned things like almost base revenue limit and categorical programs, and we don't need that anymore. And I also appreciate that the basis for whoever conceived of the template is probably working on these very things. But I hope that as you deal with the memorandum of understanding that it really reflects what we do today and what we're asking the charter school to do today in the current post-LCFF, LCAP world.
All right, and I will say that just today the county gave us a revised, updated State Board of Education modeled template, and so it's not a change. It really is just an update. So so that those things can be included. It isn't a substantive enough change to make it deter from the recommendation, but it would certainly make it more current and updated. The original MOU that was drafted in this time frame was modeled after the previous one, and some of those things weren't in existence. Okay. So we're all in that process of transition and updating, and I think it makes perfect sense to include that, and I can't imagine that the charter school would balk at that.
Okay, so it looks like the superintendent's recommendation is there for everyone to see. Does anyone have a motion that they'd like to make?
Yes, I would like to make a change in that recommendation. I'd like to move that we tentatively approve the MOU as it stands, and then final approve when the MOU is completed and all the changes made inside of 30 days.
Okay, if I understand, are you saying that you want to approve the petition?
The petition.
And then conditionally approve the MOU?
That's correct.
Okay, I understand. Is there a second for that motion? To approve the petition and contingent
upon,
tentatively approve the MOU associated with the renewal petition.
Okay, so the only thing you've added is a tentative approval versus approval.
right, versus an approval, and then one of the MOU is completed with changes and additions and deletions, then we finalize it in, 30 days?
Within 30 days, so it'd be probably, hopefully by the next board meeting, but if not, the one after that.
Okay, but would not require an additional vote once that's taken care of.
No, I am saying to have an additional vote.
So,
You want the
A
additional-
final vote after we
so would it
reread
meet your needs to say we approve the petition contingent on finalization of an MOU, and we want to come back and approve the MOU? Either at this next board meeting on November 18th or the one in December.
Guess there's a good question for you.
Our attorney, Mr. Ye.
Good evening, John Ye, with Burke, Williams, and Sorensen. The reason that the superintendent's recommendation is phrased the way it is that under the education code, the board must actually take action to grant or deny the renewal petition within 60 days. And this is your last regularly scheduled board meeting before those 60 days expires. So instead of tentatively approving the petition, contingent upon the MOU, which technically wouldn't meet that requirement, the recommendation is to conditionally approve the petition and have that conditioned upon the MOU and the other changes to the petition being completed within 30 days. And that is intended to comply with the education code requirement that the board action take place within 60 days.
So it sounds like that the language that we have is what meets the conditions of law, either yay or nay.
Yes.
So any changes that we don't like at the end of 30 days, we are stuck with them because we've already voted to approve them.
The way the board agenda actually proposes the recommendation is that if the changes, the conditions aren't met, if the MOU isn't entered into and the changes that are requested by the district not met, the approval would be rescinded retroactively as well. So there is the incentive for especially LVCP, but both parties to have that finalized within the 30-day period.
So we would still get to review the MOU before it's, we would bless it before it was enacted.
Yes.
What's the mechanism for that then?
We're going to agendize it on a board meeting and approve it or disapprove it.
Well, I think there's a few steps in between as well.
But our part.
Right. Well, except for, no, I think the board has given some suggestions this evening, which we would begin incorporating. I know that Trustee Rogie sent some email comments this morning, which we would begin to incorporate. And so we're already getting feedback regarding the proposed MOU. We would ask Mr. Ye and Mr. Van Schack to work with Mr. Dilley or the representatives to incorporate some of the updates from the county. So I think it's going to be a very lively process. And then you could receive Friday updates between now and then about any revisions, because we have a 10-day rule that if you're going to vote on the 18th, you need to see something that is a revision. And then it would still be subject to, my understanding, and please correct me, would be subject to a board approval of the MOU as well as LVCP approval. They also would approve.
Is the process, Mr. Van Schack has actually been discussing reviewing the MOU with LVCP already, so that's a process that's already in progress, and it's intended with an eye towards the second reason we set it up this way was also in anticipation that there might be specific board feedback on the MOU, and therefore we wanted to leave the process open in which the parties could actually turn around and incorporate that board feedback before it came back to the board. The other approach would have been essentially to lock the board into approving the MOU as presented, and that wouldn't give the board the opportunity to make the changes that you've identified.
I think when the recommendation says mutually acceptable, that gives us the option to to weigh in, yea or nay.
Can we weigh in? I guess I'm still unclear. We're not going to take a second vote after tonight on the,
But
If we don't approve the MOU, then the renewal petition doesn't go through.
no, I understand that.
the
Contingency, right.
blesses.
Blesses the whole thing, but to finalize the actual wording in the end of 30 days or whenever they finish the document, we don't do anything again with it. It automatically gets approved?
The petition.
Let me,
Petition.
yeah, let me read how the board agenda item proposes that the recommendation read. Staff will recommend that the board authorize the renewal petition upon the conditions set forth above. If LVCP and the district are able to complete and sign the MOU within 30 days and LVCP agrees to modify the charter petition as requested by the district, approval would become final and the district would assume oversight responsibilities beginning July 1, 2015. If the conditions are not met, the district's approval would be rescinded by operation of law and without further action being required. So that's the protection and that's the incentive for the charter school to agree to terms of the MOU that are agreeable to the district as well.
Well, that's not my contention. We may not agree with what happens inside of the next 30 days.
But we're approving it.
But we're approving it, right, and that seems to be a final decision.
No, we're going to approve it at another meeting. The MOU is
That's what I'm
going
trying
to
to
come back.
Okay.
That's what we've said. It's either going to come back on the 18th or it's going to come back in the December meeting for approval. And it's not done until it's approved.
Yeah, Mr. Van Schack has been discussing the MOU with LVCP with an eye actually towards the November 18th board meeting, which is within the 30 days. That's why the progress, they wouldn't be starting from scratch tomorrow. Actually, that process has been ongoing, and Mr. Van Schack has said that LVCP has agreed in principle to the MOU that we proposed. We left the door open for any modifications that the board identified tonight, which is why we've structured it to allow this 30-day period in which the parties could make changes to the MOU, instead of bringing a fixed MOU to you that you would have to approve tonight without being able to make modifications.
Okay, then I would like to rescind my my move and rephrase it as it is.
As stated by Mr. Ye when he.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that because I don't think I can redo it.
But you're also saying that mutually acceptable means
It's coming back for a vote.
an action by us.
Exactly.
To make it acceptable.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there a second for Mr. Rogi's motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
I second it.
All right. And with that, Mr. Rogi, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. White.
Aye.
President Runyon.
Aye.
Dr. Dunlop.
Aye.
And myself, aye.
All right. So that motion carries unanimously. And thank you for your time
Thank you.
and your diligence. And we've got the next item, SEIU.
Thanks again, Mr. Ye. And for this item, we also have Mr. Chris Van Schack, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, and he will be presenting to you a summary of the successor agreement between the Service Employees International Union and the Livermore School District, our final bargaining unit agreement.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowers. So tonight, as Mrs. Bowers pointed out, we brought LEA to you and CSEA. This evening, we bring to you SEIU. They ratified the agreement with their members last week, and so tonight I'm going to discuss some of the highlights of that agreement, and we will celebrate another year of negotiations being completed. So with SEIU, we negotiated the same 2.58% salary increase, which would be retroactive to the beginning of the school year. We also modified compensation in several areas, as you see listed there. We did a classification and compensation study several years ago, and it was identified that these four positions at that time were significantly underpaid in comparison not just to those positions in other districts, but in comparison to other classifications within our own school district. And so at that time, an agreement was created between the two parties that when an opportunity to fix that would present itself, we would do that. So over the next 2 years, we will be bringing those 4 groups into line with the rest of our salary schedules. We also, once again, I think showing the importance of a completed 3-year agreement, modified 32.1, to read that. And we also agreed to allow SEIU to participate in our current classification and compensation study, which so far involves management, CSEA, and our classified management confidentials. So all of our units will be evaluated. We also made some changes to some language, which I pointed out in the board report, and I will not go through in detail here, but most of it was clarification language, cleanup language, bringing our current contract into agreement with state and federal law. And so we made some minor changes there. And again, I think we all celebrate the completion of another round of negotiations, and the recommendation would be to ratify the successor agreement between SEIU Local 1021 and the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District.
Thank you very much. Did any board member want to comment? Any member of the public? I was just going to say thank you to all the people who worked so hard to get this done, and we're very pleased to finally have it here for us to vote on. Indeed. And it doesn't look like anybody wants to comment, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we ratify the successor agreement between SEIU Local 1021 and the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rogi, will you call the roll?
Dr. Dunlop?
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Runyon?
Aye.
And Mrs. White?
Aye.
So that motion carries unanimously. It's very nice to have agreements with all our employee associations. Indeed. And that brings us to everybody's favorite topic, which is policy.
And we just heard earlier from our financial advisors that there'll be a new policy coming.
Apparently.
I hope you were taking note, Mr. Vernoy. I
Some
saw the
light
eagerness.
I predict it'll be light evening reading.
So for our next item, we have Mr. Scott Vernoy, our Director of Student Services, who oversees the Policy Committee, and he will be presenting some of our board policies and administrative regulations for an approval for the board for a first reading.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Madam President, members of the board, it's my pleasure tonight to present policies from Series 3000, 5000, 6000, and Board Bylaws 9000. So our first posting was October 24th, and our first reading is tonight, November 4th. So tonight I bring to you a group of policies, proposed additions, revisions, and replacements of board policies, board bylaws, and administrative regulations for a first reading. The first one that I would like to introduce to you is Board Bylaw 9270, which is conflict of interest. And it's stated in the board policy that we review this board policy every even year. The Political Reform Act requires every local agency to review its conflict of interest code for accuracy and notify it of codes reviewing body on even-numbered years. So we did review it. We made slight changes to the amendments that only there was deletion of old jobs that were currently in the policy and additions of new jobs that have been added in that interim. The next 7 policies are all based on AB 97, the school finance bill. I had brought 2 of those to you at the past 2 board meetings. I think it was goals for the school district and a discipline that also were affected because of our school finance bill and the changes from categorical to LCAP. So I'll go through each one. If you have questions as we go along, I would be glad to answer those. The first one is Board Policy 3460 is our financial reports and accountability. and I thank Ms. Kinder for her assistance on this. We are asking for a proposed replacement of this policy, which, because of the new law, AB 97, aligns the state standards and criteria for interim reports with the local control funding formula, and also updates an annual audit to include whether the funds were expended in accordance with the district's local control accountability plan. The next policy is Board Policy 5145.6, parental notifications. And this policy is being updated to delete notices related to advanced placement exam fees, gifted and talented education, and intensive instruction, as those categorical funding sources were eliminated. But those were eliminated, but they were replaced by the new LCAP. The next board policy is 6151, class size. It's a proposed addition of a board policy. So we currently do not have a class size board policy, but because of new law AB 97, it eliminates the prior K3 class size reduction and Morgan Hart class size reduction language from this policy and makes adjustments to the K3 base grant under LCFF. It also talks about making progress towards a class size of 24 in grades K through 3. The following policy is also a proposed addition. It's Board Policy 6162.5. And it requires that statewide assessments be used as one measure of the district's LCAP, or local control accountability plan, and that the policy also reflects new law AB 484, which replaces the STAR test with the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, or we will call it the CASP. The next being proposed replacement is Board Policy 6162.51, academic achievement tests. And AB 97 requires that the school and districts demonstrate comparable improvement in academic achievement by all numerical significant subgroups. Proposed revision to Board Policy 6163.1 is our library media centers. This policy, it's eliminating the school and library improvement block grants and state instructional materials funds, but adds optional language which addresses the development of the library plan that is aligned with the district and school plans. Yes.
So there's no more site councils? Because if there's no more school improvement plans, see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So is there a replacement proposed for the school improvement money? Are we going to decide for ourselves how to distribute whatever?
So what we did this year was we gave the sites the local control funding in the amount very similar to what they received in SLIP money before. Okay. They also received the LCFF supplemental funds for those specific populations. And then, although there is not a requirement for a single plan for student achievement for schools that, well, let's put it this way, their requirement to have a single plan is for those schools that are receiving federal funds. But we have all of our schools producing the single plans. Because they're just a good idea for our schools in making plans moving forward. So they don't have SLIP money anymore. That does not exist, but they have LCFF
base funding money and they have supplemental fund money.
And so what some districts are doing is they're only having their Title I funded schools go through the school site council and SLIP process because that's the requirement. But it's our recommendation, because the process has been so fulfilling for the schools and the parents to be involved and the teachers in the process, it also keeps us all aligned to the LCFF, and so, or the LCAP, I guess. So we are voluntarily continuing that, even though the one significant difference is that the school site councils at non-Title I funded schools, they review it. They're in a review kind of advisory capacity, whereas from the Title I funded schools, they actually must approve their plan. So that's kind of the I don't know if it's a semantic difference, it's a procedural difference, but as far as we are concerned, for all intents and purposes, we still value the input of the larger group and how any funds that are given to the site are expended. And similarly, we continue saying, asking them to have a character education plan and a GATE plan, or a gifted and talented education program, even if the title doesn't exist in the same way. We know we have gifted students, and we do want to have all of our sites have a plan for that.
So did I understand correctly that the supplemental money is going to the school sites and where it's generated, rather than the district to do district-wide things for the targeted students?
So some of the funding is at the district level, and then some of it is at the site level, and that was all outlined in the LCAP, how that money would be distributed.
We didn't do the audit trail like we did last year. Yeah. Okay. Another question is, we followed the scheme of things that had been established when the state gave the money as a categorical money. Do we need to reevaluate that scheme? Let's just think about that as part of our new way of looking at things.
I think we will always reevaluate, because the anticipation is actually additional funding will come in, and so as schools take on special focus areas, say technology, some may need different expansion of areas. We know that QEIA, that it possibly will be going away, and so those kinds of decisions that we would ask the board to weigh in on, whether now LCFF funding would be in that large amount toward Maryland school, or would similar things be proposed at, say, a Junction or another school that might be deserving. So all of those things are part of the LCAP and LCFF review, I think, annually. This year, the way the funding came out, there was no large influx of additional money, so we were trying to still maintain.
Thank you. Got my questions answered.
Thank you very much for your support. The last one that I bring forward to you is Board Policy 6184, and a proposed replacement for this continuation education policy. Mandated policy reflects a new law which mandates the district adopt policy with specific provisions if it allows students to voluntarily enroll in continuation education, which we do, and we already have this policy in place. But also the new law eliminates the pupil retention block grant, and the policy also adds material on alignment of the program with goals of the LCAP. So those are the policies I bring to you tonight. The superintendent's recommendation is that we approve the first reading of proposed additions, revisions, and replacements of board policies, administrative regulations from the Series 3000, 5000, 6000, and revised bylaw from Series 9000 prior to posting for the second and final reading, with revisions that have been received already.
All right, are there any further questions? No? And we don't even have an audience left, so I don't think anyone's coming to comment. Well, oh, staff wants to come up? All right. No. Yes, so would someone like to make a motion on this?
I'll move that we approve the first reading of the proposed additions, revisions, and replacements of board policies, administrative regulations from Series 3000, 5000, 6000, a revised bylaw from Series 9000 prior to the second and final reading.
Great. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Mr. Rogie?
President Runyon.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Dr. Dunlop.
Aye.
And Mrs. White.
Aye. Okay, we have one change that everyone received at their seat. Item K, the revision of the revised salary schedule. And did anyone want to pull any item on consent? No?
I would just like to, item D, again, thank everybody who has gifted the district, and Christmas is coming up, so please give generously.
Thank you, Mr. Rogie. And would someone like to make a motion on consent?
I'll motion, Madam President, I motion that, I move, to approve consent items A through M.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And Mr. Rogie?
Yes, Dr. Dunlop?
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Runyon?
Aye.
And Mrs. White?
Aye.
And we have no resolutions tonight, so we'll go right to board member reports and requests. Mrs. White, would you like to?
I attended the bully movie that the mayor sponsored last Wednesday night at the Vine. It was very impressive. I'm not sure I would want to see it casually, though, because it followed a family with a child who was being terribly bullied on the bus. And we saw him being bullied, and we saw him telling his parents he was being bullied, and it was painful to watch. And we saw everybody go to the vice principal, who was not very effective in dealing with it. And maybe our vice principals need to be aware of the things that they probably should do when the parents bring those issues. But the mayor, I didn't stay for the whole event. Mr. Vernoy was there, and there was discussion groups with the parents and students who were there. And we know it's not part of character counts to either bully or be bullied. Went to PCIC today, and we heard from Mrs. Robbins and Mr. Warner talk about Common Core and the Chromebooks approach to testing. Thank you.
Dr. Dunlop?
Only a couple of items. Since Mr. Nagel is not here, I'll remind people that this Saturday is the Livermore Granada Boosters 10K, 5K, mile, half marathon. Take your pick. But you know, it's a great event and brings a lot of money for the Boosters Club yearly. And so anyway, I plan on being there. I assume that the superintendent will be there, and we'll race together.
Actually, I do have to say that, remember, I am the one who crossed the finish line, as my family reminds me. In my first race, I crossed with someone who was on crutches and someone who was in a walking cast. So I think you've already won that race, Dr. Dunn.
Mr. Rogie.
Yes, one of the things that was fun to go to the last couple of weeks was I hit some of the schools that were having their Halloween fairs and carnivals, and it was pretty spectacular. A lot of the schools, Sunset, Mitchell had a, now I forgot what the thing is called, a trebuchet. They're throwing pumpkins. They had heavier pumpkins than needed, and it went about a foot past the trebuchet. But it was fun for everybody anyway. Everybody was having a great time. Croce's had one, and Altamont Creek had, and all the kids came out, parents were out. It just looked like a great time for all the schools that were having this. And a lot of, Sunset was smart. They displayed the game up on their wall. So the dads were all clustered around there, and the moms and the kids were doing games. So it was pretty cool. And I do have one request, and it's nothing that has to take place, I think, immediately, but I would like to find out the breakdown on what it costs us administratively for overhead for federal programs and some mandatory state programs for the dollar match that we get. I don't know if you have that, or we get $1 from the Fed. How much does it cost for us to administratively track it and all the demands that they make?
So what's interesting, there is a percentage that we're allowed to set aside for to charge for administrative costs are without having raw data in front of me. It's usually a 15% amount that we're allowed to charge for that, but there's a chance that in some programs we're under that and some we're over. But we can pull up data.
Amy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that some of those programs, although we can only charge 15%, they take a lot more time than the 15% that we're allowed to charge. And sometimes we wonder if they're worth it.
Well, I know that the migrant education program, the
one.
federal tentacles around that, that's why some districts actually join consortiums instead. I mean, our migrant students certainly deserve as much support as we can give them, but the bureaucracy and paperwork around some of the federal programs is such that it does, you know, you do sort of wonder sometimes about all of the funding that goes along with it and all the bureaucracy. So I think the state has done a better job of streamlining more recently, and then certainly some of our programs are more costly, but we can give you some data on that, right?
We could try.
And
we also have like a federal program monitoring audit that's coming up, so that'll be another time-consuming event.
Yeah, I mean, it would be future ammunition to talk to legislators about, let's cut out some of the
red tape.
Yeah, let's put the money to better use. And the reason I brought it up is I saw a district down south that had posted that, and some of their programs were, it was like they spend $1, they get $1 and they spend $1. It almost doesn't make any sense. So I just was wondering how we are affected by that. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, and I just had 2 items I wanted to talk about tonight. First, I really enjoyed the single plan meetings, learned an awful lot, and I thought that the process that we had this time was more streamlined, really good. So I just wanted to commend staff. I don't know who came up with the idea for the change, but I thought it worked really well. I heard from the high schools, both the comprehensive high schools, the adult school in Del Valle, and several of the elementaries, and I got a lot out of the presentations. So I thought it was good, and I heard a lot of comments from the principals that it was good for them, especially the elementary principals who don't have a lot of collaboration time with their colleagues, that was kind of forced collaboration time working together on those presentations. So I liked it. And don't know whether I'll be here in the future. Kind of depends on how the voting goes. But I'm interested in hearing some more on Project Lead the Way, because it's been a while since I've heard about it. And we seem to be growing that program a lot, and I'd love to have the people that are working on that come in and share how that's going. So,
I think if you and Mr. Rogi are asking for staff work, you need to get 2 other people to agree to that.
I agree before it's done. I'm just throwing out, that's something that I would like. If you disagree, then...
No, I don't disagree. I just would like to know how much, whether we want a 10-minute report or a 15-page written report, or...
I'm just hoping that maybe we'll incorporate it into next year's board meetings at some point, maybe have a report.
That sounds like it's reasonable.
I just think it's a great program, and it's growing. We just approved tonight for a teacher to go for more training, so I'd like to hear more. That's all. I think it's a great thing. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
So thank you. I was asked by Mr. Nagel, it's his birthday today, so but he asked me to make sure I put the plug out for the fifth annual Race to the Flagpole. And I heard that Mr. Van Schack is going to try to defend his title against the 9-year-olds. But we do have a record number of participants. It's still not too late to sign up, and you have a T-shirt, and it's a great day. We heard that the weather will be wonderful, so we hope to see you on Saturday. I wanted to just let you know that Trustee White and I had the opportunity to attend the Livermore Lab, or the LINS Community Gift Program, and we received grants to support STEM in our schools for top science, as well as for the STEM program at Granada. I also had the honor of attending and speaking at the Pedrosi donor reception. There's a lot of new members of the board for Pedrosi, and it was very exciting to meet them at their house right now on the Mocho campus. They have beautiful photos, because now there have been so many Pedrosi scholars that are now featuring students who've received the funding and the scholarships, and now have gone on their way to great things in life, and so they're coming back now to meet with others. And it was just a really exciting evening. We were very proud to be part of that. And remember that Pedrosi, for the last 2 years, has funded for all students who are sophomores to take the PSAT, which we've learned is a financial barrier for some families, and it just levels the playing field and gives everyone a connection to college and university careers. The other thing that's very exciting is I had an opportunity to speak at the East Bay Community Foundation Luncheon that was on suburban poverty. And so we have a group that Mr. Vernoy represents us on, where they have planned an event really raising the awareness about and using data and data analysis to say that even though it is not often talked about, it's a topic that's submerged in the suburbs. We have folks who are suffering, sometimes silently, in poverty. And it's very apparent in the urban areas that there are pockets of poverty and that people need assistance and resources and cannot get to some of those. But sometimes in the suburbs, that's missed. And amidst the prosperity, there is poverty. And sometimes it's generational, but sometimes it also is situational. And it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone has made horrible choices in life. It's just that the economy affects people, sometimes medical issues, being a veteran, elderly status. There's a lot of factors that could contribute to that. So it was a really neat opportunity, and Trustee White came, as well as our vice principal from the high school was there, Van G. student, and essentially the audience was designed for government folks, people in big industry, as well as all of the faith groups and others who are nonprofits. Because instead of reinventing the wheel and duplicating resources, we're trying to look for some continual boosting of students and youth in poverty and support our communities. So it was about awareness and analysis, and then the next steps will be action. What can we do? And we're looking at models outside of our area to see what has worked and how we can really make a difference to sustain the community and invest in our future. What we really realized during that process was that we have to be the voice and raise the consciousness, because the folks in poverty will not usually speak up. They don't even self-identify. And Livermore had a higher concentration of students in poverty, but they exist and live in Dublin and Pleasanton, and so that was an awareness that people didn't have. So you'll hear more about it. I think there'll be some presentations here in the board, and we will be continually seeking resources. Now that we have the politicians' awareness, we're looking for policy changes as well. So I hope that you'll join us in that. And again, we will see you on Saturday at the Race to the Flagpole.
All right. And having no further business, we're adjourned at 8:16.